Dimebag Darrell had him tattooed on his chest.
That's right.
And Dimebag's like one of the greatest metal guitarists ever. I mean, just like over the top. And his idol
is Ace
Frehley. And Ace Frehley influenced, including me, so many people over the years as a guitarist and showman and everything. He was just, the guy was so good. He was so cool, and he was such a great, anyway. All right, so just a plug, Audio Mover, sponsor for this show, always Audio Mover. If you have old audio videotapes you need to convert to digital, and you know you do, or you know somebody that does, you don't want to let them deteriorate anymore. Audiomover.com. Been doing it for 20 years. And go to audiomover.com, start your order there, and get your audio and videotapes sent in, and get them converted to digital so you can have a permanent archive of your audio and videotapes. And with that, we got Dylan here with us.
Hey, Dylan.
We're at the Thick and Mystic Studio in St. George, Utah. Dylan is here this evening recording these with us, and Dylan's going to bring us a record for us to get started with. Oh my gosh, and it is one of the greatest albums of all time. This is another one. I think I have 3 or 4 copies of this in the collection. It's one of those that is just, it is one of the great albums of all time. Pyromania.
Yeah, dude, this album was so huge. And then Hysteria came out and blew that away. But this laid the foundation for so much. And I personally, one of my favorite ones is actually the one before,
High and Dry. I was just going to say that.
High and Dry is amazing.
That's their best one.
Amazing. All the guitar tones, all that. Not taking anything away from Pyromania, because this is the step in the polished deal that became what Def Leppard is today. High and Dry is straight up rock and roll. I love it.
Different guitar player. Phil Collins
came in.
Not Phil. So Phil Collins is the guy that ended up joining this. Interesting, because when I remember hearing Phil Collins, what the heck? Phil Collins?
Right.
No, Phil Collins. It's it was just another guitar player, and he replaced, oh my gosh, now, when we do this without a net, I don't have time to prepare to think of the names. I'll think of it in a minute. The other guitarist, because it was Steve Steeman Clark and another guitar player that was on High and Dry. And he actually had this, I think he played a Gibson Explorer, and he's the one, I think, that seemed to give him that AC/DC flair. And when he was gone, when he left, you could hear the sound change a little bit to this. Still had that edge, but it became a little more commercial. And Phil Collins kind of, I think, brought that to the band.
Yeah, I'm thinking,
so
was Mutt Lange already involved with them on this?
I think this might have been the first time. Was it Mutt Lange that produced this? Yeah.
I want to say that
Robert Mutt Lange, as I recall. I'm gonna look. Because whoever produced this was one of those big name producers.
Yeah, ex-husband of Shania Twain.
Okay.
I think these are just facts that I somehow connect. You know, we were talking about all these little connections.
Yeah, Robert. Yeah, interestingly,
right?
Robert John Mutt Lange.
No, I mean, this album is so. I mean,
yeah, it's first. So, Def Leppard Pyromania. The cover is so colorful, really cool, and I've always loved this cover. Although I had no idea what I remember when 9/11 happened and a bunch of people started pointing back to this album, you know, that this was like a precursor or something. I remember hearing some
I can tell you right now, being from New York, you know, Def Leppard had nothing to do with 9/11.
But this cover ended up having kind of a weird connotation once that happened. But anyway, I just remember people talking about that back then, and I thought, whatever. Yeah. The cover's cool. It's very interesting. You know, it's super colorful, and I thought it was, anyway, it was a very, very, very awesome cover.
Yeah. No, I remember, again, imagery in high school. I want to say junior high, actually.
This would have been 82?
Yeah, I remember there was a gal.
It was 82 or 83.
There was a gal in high school.
83.
Actually, I do know her name, Jody. I want to say her last name's Yankowski. How do I know these things? I don't know. But, she was a huge Def Leppard fan. I think for Halloween, thank you, Jody, because she let me borrow, like, the British flag sleeveless shirt Dude,
Which Joe Elliott, Joe
Yeah.
Elliott wore that, and actually
then
Rick
Allen
Allen
wore the shorts.
had the shorts, the
Yeah.
British.
No, it's still I
Yep.
don't know if I ever thanked her enough for that, but that was a cool.
He made that super popular.
Yeah,
that was so
huge,
big.
huge.
The sleeveless shirt.
There was so much because the MTV was blowing up at
Yeah.
the time. This album was all over the airwaves. You couldn't go anywhere without having Rock of Ages or Foolin' was another one that was all over the place.
Rock of Ages was such a big hit. Unter Gleben, Glauten
Right.
Globe.
What does that
Everybody
even mean?
knew that.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that. Oh, right, I got something to say. That was so big. That in the way that drum kicked in. Yeah.
Has this got Too Late for Love as well? That's
Yeah.
the slower one, right? That's an awesome.
Yeah. Oh, here, let's flip it over, because we can look at the tracks over here. So, Rock Till You Drop. That was a great tune.
Yep.
Photograph
Right.
was just
How'd I miss that one?
as big as it. That was probably the
Huge,
biggest
the
on this.
biggest
I
hit
think.
on this.
Stage Fright, great song. I said, "Welcome to my show." Isn't
Yeah.
that the one that starts out with that?
Yeah, and the guitar's
Great
kicking
song. Yeah. Too Late for Love,
in. Right.
and Die Hard the Hunter, which was actually a cool
That's a
tune.
good tune.
And then there was Foolin', huge. Rock of Ages, huge. Action Not Words wasn't huge, still great tune. Coming Under Fire was a great song too.
I like that one.
Oh, that was good. And then Billy's Got a Gun. And then this album was interesting because if you play Billy's Got a Gun and then you get to the end
This is the one that just kept going.
and then you let it sit for a second, it got quiet, and then all of a sudden the sound came out. And it just go over and over for no reason. And then all of a sudden it just
I
ended.
want to say, didn't High and Dry have something weird like no, no, no? Because that's the
know.
last track on that song.
I don't know.
It just was no,
remember.
no, no. It just went infinitely forever. It seemed like.
Maybe. I
I-
don't remember.
Again, how do I
But
recall?
But
these
yeah,
things?
but that album, the album before this one, the one you mentioned, High and Dry, was more AC/DC like. They had a very AC/DC sound in that album.
Sure.
And I loved that album. Was just over the top, best one. But it's interesting because I didn't like this album as much, but this album was way bigger as far as sales. And then Hysteria, about 4 years later when it came out, I mean, they had tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, not the least of which was Rick Allen losing his arm.
right.
You know, and they had to have a special drum set made just so that he could play.
And I want to say what
this
it was
album.
like years between albums.
Yeah,
which,
yeah, I think it
which
was 86
normally-
or 87.
I mean, if you're not Boston or somebody, I mean, you're not that type of a gap. Your career and fan base forgets about
Yes,
you. They're moving
exactly.
on, going over. Like, for Hysteria to come out, yes, the anticipation because Pyromania was so huge. That was a big thing, and then they did the In the Round, and then MTV was full blown. Pour Some Sugar on Me, which isn't. I mean, obviously that's Hysteria, but
They got so big.
it was crazy.
But
Yeah,
for me
how-
personally, High and Dry was the pinnacle of everything. This was great, but a step down. And I hate to say this, I did not like Hysteria. I just didn't even like it.
It was super polished.
I owned
man.
it. I bought it the day that it came. I mean, I was so excited, beside myself. I wanted to love that album so much. And eventually I got to the point I thought, I don't even really like these songs. It was so polished. And you know,
Yes.
and it was one of those things you learn early on. If you're a smart musician, you make music girls like. And they knew that. Because Hysteria,
I think it was the
that was
package,
the thing.
the timing. I mean, that's a great point, right? Now you suddenly, I mean, I don't want to say it's just like a dude fest, but yeah, you just doubled your audience if you appeal to the girls, right? Or to the
or
women.
more. Because if the girls like it, then the guys like it. I was
go.
taught that early on.
So, and I'm trying to be politically correct because I certainly don't want to. In 2021,
Hey, when you're a
screw up
musician,
plenty.
you get this stuff. It's just the way this stuff works.
But I think Hysteria was one of those albums that, and I know we're talking Pyromania, but Pyromania just set the tone or set the marker so high.
They
How can
sold
you
something
top
like
that?
12 million albums. I mean, it was crazy how many they sold.
Right?
It is one of the top selling albums as far as albums go ever.
I mean, somebody can Google
So-
that. How many albums of Pyromania sold, and then how many Hysteria? I mean,
and this
those
was somewhere around
numbers,
3 million, something like that, and then
Those
Hysteria
numbers
was
are still
it's crazy.
insane.
Which was incredible because they took so much time putting that album out and so much money that they needed to. I think they had said something like they needed to sell 2 or 3 million just to survive, and then they ended up just crushing that.
Yes.
No one expected it. No one expected it to
and
work
I think
out.
one of the reasons it's kind of we heard it played. Every song was like a freaking single.
Every song, and even one of the songs on the back of a single ended up getting some airplay.
Like,
that's how big that album was.
It was so over the top. Def Leppard at that point was on top of the world, so over the top, and so many. You heard it everywhere. Of course, if you're like me, I got to change it up a little bit. I like variety, and I mean, even when I listen to it today, Hysteria, it's still awesome, super polished. But I just feel like that album in my head, it's a little tired. Like, okay, I've heard this only 26,000 times.
Yeah.
But Pyromania is, I think, a little scaled back, a little more, where I can listen to and just rock out.
This is more
awesome.
in your face rock and
Yeah.
roll. Way more than Hysteria was so polished that it became more of a pop album. It was less. It was hard to even call it a hard rock album.
Yeah,
the first single was Woman, which they actually thought that they were going to fail because that single kind of went nowhere. And then I can't remember what it was, but by the time Pour Some Sugar came on me, that thing went over. But this is not that. And I actually saw these guys on this tour opening up for, believe it or not, Billy Squier.
Oh, no kidding.
But everybody that was there came to see these guys, not Billy Squier. That's because they were going boom at that point. Interestingly, though, I thought Billy Squier was better live band. I've seen these guys live a bunch of times. I've never really liked them live.
Excuse me.
Joe Elliott's an okay front man. He's a better singer than front man. And so, but anyway.
I think, we seen him, I think we were in college when they were doing Hysteria.
Oh, yeah, we saw him in the round.
In the round.
We went to that together.
Yep.
Forgot about that. Yeah. Anyway, I remembered before I pulled this out, this was just going to be a plastic insert. And then the inside here, there's nothing super interesting about the inside. See if there's anything. Oh, here we go. Here's one of those. Okay. Here's one of those that has something weird written. Probably can't see it in that camera, but it's written right there. It's actually etched in. I'm going to see if I can read it correctly. It says.
But I got to pull out my cheaters, man.
It says, if you're going to be a bear. That's all it says. Somebody etched it in here. If you're gonna be a bear, and then that's the only thing it says. Let's see if it says anything on the other side. It's so funny. These weird little things in here.
I'm impressed that you remembered. I can't see that.
Oh, here it is. And here's part 2.
Oh, part 2 of the bear.
If you're gonna
be a bear,
be a grizzly. That's what it says.
Well done, Def Leppard.
So on side A, inside here, it says, if you're going to be a bear, and on side B, be a grizzly.
The little things.
What the heck? Yeah, it's so much fun. This is, once again, why vinyl was so cool. It's all the weird stuff. The experience of it all, discovering the weird little things like that are so what the heck.
It goes back to how many senses,
Yes.
audio, visual, you're touching,
And now
you're
there's
looking.
mystery. You're looking for secrets, and you're studying. I mean, when we talked about that Dio one, I mean, I looked at the people and the Number of the Beast. I looked at the people, studying all the little.
Who are those people?
Characters.
Does they mean something?
Yeah.
Is it, Star Wars? Is it the Sith back there?
Yeah, exactly.
These dark people. What do they mean? What's Dio telling me? Is the end near? I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, good stuff. Great pick, Dylan.
All right, man. Pyromania. That's a good one. Pyromania. All right, so Dylan's going to bring us another
Pyromania.
record.
And Def Leppard as a whole. I think they just did like a residency in Vegas. I
Really?
heard it was awesome.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Oh,
Ooh.
my gosh.
All right, this is serious. This is pre-grunge Seattle serious music, man.
This was their second album. So they had a self-released, self-recorded EP that was just called Queensryche, and it just had their logo on it. and it had the song
Queen of the
Reich, and then it had another song, Lady Wore Black. I think that's the other one that was on there that I really liked. It was 4-song EP, and it was great. As a matter of fact, I loved him. A friend of mine named Kurt Bartlett.
Hey, Kurt.
Introduced me to that album. And I went and bought it. It was 4-song EP. I remember being over at his house and he showed me this thing. He's like, sounds like Bruce Dickinson. Everybody made that comparison that he sounded like Iron Maiden. And so then all of a sudden, all the Maiden guys are like, we all wanted to get a hold of it and buy it. And so it was kind of it didn't sound great, but then this was their first major label release. Yeah, The Warning. Pete Willis. I'm so sorry. That's the guitarist that was in Def Leppard.
Dude, what the hell? Talking Queensrÿche, we moved
Pete
on.
Pete Willis. Sorry, it's processing back here, okay. And then it jumps out. Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to say it, man. It kills me when I can't think of a name.
Pete Willis. Def Leppard guitarist, pre-Phil Collins. Not Phil Collins. From Genesis. Got it. Good. Dude, that's impressive. How do you even recall that out of nowhere? You were really sitting on that?
Pete Willis.
That was good.
I knew it would come. I knew it would come eventually. It always does. So, okay.
Queensryche, I want to say, my introduction to Queensryche was they opened for none other than Kiss on one of the tours. Yes. I had
Kiss had so many bands that opened. I think Cheap Trick, even, who we did before, I think they opened up for him once.
Maybe. But Queensryche opened up for them. I was at Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, and I remember getting Queensryche t-shirts were extra cheap. Probably at that time was $8. So that was the expensive. I think I paid $5, and I got a Queensryche and a Kiss concert shirt, because that was the other part of all this band stuff. Is the merchandising was a huge part and revenue stream, I guess. But I remember seeing Queensryche. Totally not Kiss for me.
Oh, not even, yeah.
I mean, they were
so different.
A 5-piece band with this singer that was singing some notes that I'm like, what is going on? And he had the short hair with some weird little thing going on. And they were
So you must have seen him on the album after this one then. Because this one he had more of a...
I want to say, but maybe that's why I got the shirt on sale, is this was the old tour. The pre... I remember this is the shirt I got.
Because the next album, he kind of had this weird, almost mohawk-looking thing and a mullet. Anyway. Okay, anyway.
But that was my introduction to Queensryche. And then I was like, college, get together with you. And that's when we ended up, you were like, dude, have you heard of these guys? I saw them with Kiss or whatever. I was like, yeah, I remember hearing them. And then I remember you telling me, sorry, Kurt, Queen of the Reich, you got to listen to this. Warning. And then I can't remember the album after that. And then while we were in college is when Empire, I think, came out, which Operation Mindcrime
was right before
was
Empire.
Before that, and that album's insanely awesome. That is such a great album. I can listen to that.
When they toured on Empire, they played the entire Mindcrime at the concert.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it's. And I loved these guys so much. They were Jeff Tate was just an interesting character. He still is. If you just go watch interviews with him, he's a very just intellectual, kind of calm, interesting guy.
Yeah, that's how I always picked up on him, just listening to him. That's a really good point, because that's kind of what I got out of him. He's kind of a cerebral guy.
Very thoughtful guy. Yeah. And then they had a great band. Scott Rockenfeld was a guitar player. I'm never going to name them. If I sat here long enough, I might get 2 or 3 of them. But I think Scott Rockenfeld was a guitar player. Anyway, they were great musicians. And anyway, so The Warning, once again, was their sophomore album, since the first one was that and then it got picked up and then re-released their own self-titled EP. And then I guess he does have a little bit of that mullet there. But then if you go to the next album, which this is another one that I'll think of in a minute, because that was my favorite. That was my favorite album, was the one after this one. And he did have kind of a weird, there was a picture on the inside of that album where they're standing on the staircase. and his hair. They were wearing these anyway. I loved that one.
Yeah,
but this one. This was still a great album, and I remember The Warning was a great tune. Deliverance was a great tune. Let's see here. Take Hold of the Flame, and that's the one that I think they tried to make a single, and that was a great tune.
That's a great song. My favorites were Warning, Take Hold of the Flame. I think those were the two that stood out at me. And granted, they're also the first songs. So we talked about that. First song, Make It Your Strongest, when you put that needle on that side.
Because it starts out warning, 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 and then it rocks into it.
Yeah, but great musicians. As you see them evolve, you can see from Warning to Empire how they just got more and more tight and polished and just incredible, just on so many different levels. But musicianship, I mean, from the drummer to the bass player to the two guitar players. And then Jeff's vocals.
So, matter of fact, let's go ahead and... Yeah, it's an interesting all-black picture.
I mean, this is your 80s
It is. It
look,
does have
right?
that. Yeah.
Everybody's in black. You got the band. Everybody's there.
Well, it's at least all kind of leather, typical kind of stuff with the gloves and the hair.
Yeah.
So, let's take a look.
But they weren't
inside.
an LA product. That's what also made them unique. Is that?
And this was okay. I remember this inside. This looked like family portrait time almost on the inside. Scott Rockenfeld. That's what I was thinking of. Oh, he was the drummer. He was a drummer. Man, I'm feeling stupid right now. Chris DeGarmo. He was the guitar player. That's right. He was the lanky, scrawny guy. Michael Wilton,
bass player,
and then Eddie Jackson. Yeah.
Yep.
Man,
yeah, I think that's what it says.
Got to make sure my eyes are... I feel so stupid. So Michael Wilton's a guitar player. Eddie Jackson was a bass player. And then, of course, there's Jeff Tate. I thought those were cool pictures, though, anyway.
Yeah, it does look... It does have that We're a Happy Family portrait going on. But it is... Again, it's that 80s... early heavy metal, everybody. We're trying to figure things out, like exactly how we're going to market ourselves. Do we look all tough on the back cover? We open it up and family portrait on the inside.
Yeah, that is kind of funny.
But that's what the 80s were about. It was so dichotomous on certain things.
Well, this was... So when was this? 84? 80? 84. It was 84. So we're coming into hair metal at this point, but these guys were different, I mean, they didn't really fit the mold with a lot of that other stuff.
I mean, they weren't the LA cookie cutter 84. They were different.
And to your point, because they were coming out of Seattle, like you said earlier, they were a totally different influence because of that. And then on the back here, they just have the lyrics, like a lot of people
used to
had in those times. So let's see here. So
I mean, fairly basic packaging, right? Just
yeah.
But then again, if I'm a record, company, you guys are out of Seattle, kind of different.
Queensrÿche campaign headquarters in Seattle, Washington.
How much am I going to go through all the stops? Because this is kind of, they were on the progressive side. It wasn't like melodies you can hum along to. There wasn't the Beatles or something you'd catch on the radio. I mean, so as a record executive, are you going to drop big bank and really polish these guys up? Yeah, no, we'll give them a try and see how these guys go. And they ended up getting a pretty big following.
I think it was that EP that actually got this in the first place, because that EP, for some reason, so many people bought it, and they became such a buzz that somehow people had to pay attention to them. And then, of course, they re-release that EP, and then people like, Kurt and me, and then other people go, oh my gosh, this stuff is so great. Sure. And then, of course, it just had to. And then they just became, and then getting back to your point, getting back to Empire, would they have 4 hits off that album or something? And then they were playing arenas at that point. And And I tell you what, I remember that concert. I think that was the first time I saw them on Empire, and they were so good.
Yeah, you could
his stage presence was just incredible. Jeff Tate was so good.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think when you go to a concert and you're listening to people play an album that well, it's like, okay, it's going to be different because it's live, right? But yet, Queensryche was one of those bands that you can kind of close your eyes, and they were so tight. And they could have been playing the record, you know.
It's true.
And we're not talking Milli Vanilli that they were just up there dancing and playing along. No, they were really playing, and just a tight band.
And Jeff Tate had a very theatrical approach to it too. I saw them in concert several times, and each time he would have he'd come out on stage with a different kind of look and he'd actually be acting out the song, and kind of just an interesting cerebral
different
guy. Just not your typical heavy metal
Vince
frontman.
Neil, not Rob Halford or Joe.
It's funny you mention that, because at one point they had talked about doing something. I think how they had the three tenors.
Right.
In opera, there was discussion of having something like that in metal, and it was going to be Jeff Tate, Rob Halford, and I think it was either Bruce Dickinson or Ronnie James Dio. That was the idea, that it'd be the three of them that would do it. And for some reason, it never came about, but there was legitimate discussion or something where they were going to do that. And I remember hearing about that in high school, and then when I read Rob Halford's book, he talked about it, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's right, I forgot about that. But legitimately,
someone
so the point
was
is,
coming up with that.
This guy was considered top shelf, one of the great metal vocalists. He really was, especially at the time. You looked at him, and he was like, he was just considered one of the greats.
Yeah, no, he's got a very unique voice, and I want to say, I don't know how many octave range. Like it's crazy.
Yeah,
but,
he was fantastic. So. Great performer, great music. So The Warning.
Great pick.
Man, yeah, that was a good one. All right, Dylan, let's do one more. So Dylan's going to bring us our...
Yeah, one
we
more.
Did third record. Three. We've done two, right?
We've done two. Pyromania.
So funny, we just start talking, and
Warning.
then all of a sudden I think, wait a minute, what are you... Oh my gosh. Okay, this one... This is... one of the weirdest things. I found this at a record store when I was probably 16, 17 years old.
Okay.
Now,
tell me, Robert, why this is.
This looks
so
like
weird.
This looks like Led Zeppelin 3.
It does.
And it kind of is Led Zeppelin 3. This is a Chinese bootleg of Led Zeppelin 3. This is so interesting. This album is so absolutely fascinating when you look at this thing. I'm going to just show you some interesting stuff about it. So first thing about Led Zeppelin 3, do you remember Led Zeppelin 3, that it had that turn? Like you could spin a wheel.
Oh, yeah. And it changes the graphics
like all
inside.
these circles would be different graphics, and as you spun this wheel, they would all change.
Right.
No wheel. Matter of fact, this is all just paper. Matter of fact, little pieces flying out. You can see it's crumbling as it gets older.
Mm-hmm.
Just paper. This is just thin paper, and it's actually got this really thin plastic over it, kind of holding it together. I'll show you something else. So it says Led Zeppelin 3, which is standard, what you would expect to see on Led Zeppelin 3. But look what it says down here.
Led Zeppelin. Yeah, now you're
4.
Ooh.
See that? So it
That is
says
weird.
Led Zeppelin 4 down here, Led Zeppelin 3 up here. But it has all the
track listing.
It has all the correct. I think it has. I'm gonna double check. Yeah, it has all the correct tracks. So this is the 3 song list. But you also notice here, there's a couple of. I think those are. I don't know if those are Chinese characters or not, but there's definitely Chinese characters in the back. At least I want to say definitely.
If
I
anybody
don't know Chinese, but
if anybody
I've been to
knows
China
what these
several
are.
times. Anyway, so on the back, this is a typical Led Zeppelin 3 on the back, although on the back the colors were slightly different, and I want to say that the Robert Plant was slightly more orange, as I recall, on the back of this. And the Led Zeppelin 3 original opens up.
Yeah.
It has all these different...
and then you had the thing on the front that you can change the...
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty big marketing.
Well, Peter Grant, that was their manager.
I think so.
Peter Grant, I'm pretty sure that was his name. And I'm pretty sure he's the one that did this. When he got their record contract for them, he somehow worked into the contract that the record company would cover all of the packaging costs. Somehow he worked this out. Got to Led Zeppelin 3, now they have the spinning thing.
Spinning wheel.
Led Zeppelin 4, you have that really unusual cover. You know, it has the picture on the kind of broken down wall, and he's got the sticks or something in his back. If you open it up, then you can kind of see the wall broken down. If you open it up on the inside, then you have that mountain, a picture with that guy at the top holding the lantern.
Yes.
You put it up into a window or a mirror. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, dude, I do remember you showing me.
And it looked like this big dog.
Yes.
We'll save that for another show.
Yes.
But so that's on the inside of that album. And then they got to Houses of the Holy. Same thing, opens up.
That.
You get to Physical Graffiti. Then they've got the windows, and you take the records out, and then the windows change. And so anyway, the reason they did that was because Peter Grant, from what I understand, had worked this thing out where the record company didn't realize what he had in mind. It's like, we're going to do some cool packaging in these things, and so it's not just going to be
ahead
this
of its
record.
time, man.
Yeah, and it just made it be that much more awesome. Well, so this one, though, doesn't open. It doesn't spin. It's just this thin, flimsy piece of paper, all this Chinese writing at the bottom. And then when you expect to see a record label, when you open it up, see, how do I get in here? It's kind of, the whole thing is so squirrely. It's on Union Records.
Yeah, because weren't they on Atlantic, right?
That's right. I think that's right. Led Zeppelin 4, Immigrant Song has the correct track list. Chinese characters all the way around the outside.
That is trippy, man.
Same thing in here. Led Zeppelin 4, Chinese characters. So from what I understand, because I did a little bit of research a few years ago trying to figure out what I had here, because this is obviously a kind of a unique, what the heck is this? And it was not an official Led Zeppelin release either. Okay. Apparently, from what I understand, this was a bootlegged copy of Led Zeppelin 3 that was bootlegged in China. And then they would actually somehow, on the other side of the communist whatever wall or whatever, where they wouldn't necessarily allow this stuff was bootlegged and smuggled in or whatever somehow. So and then this was how. Now, what's really interesting then also is you put this on, it is one of the worst sounding records. The scratching, and it looks clean too, but the is so loud you can barely hear the music.
Oh, that's cool.
So
it's kind of awful about that. Like, I remember, I think I got Scorpions' "Love at First Sting." When I traveled to Uruguay to see my cousins and family down there, and I was a teenager and had a different album cover, had some like girl with like, I want to say a needle like going into like her leg.
Yeah,
or something. It was
that
like
was
an
the
alternate
original cover, or exactly. The Scorpions, but they were doing legitimate different covers for different countries because they wouldn't allow some of, because they had some pretty vulgar.
They had some crazy stuff.
I mean,
straight
vulgar,
up.
like the stuff that still makes you a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, then they have the one with the lady and like
that was Love Drive.
Yeah, Love Drive.
And that wasn't bad compared to...
It's almost Spinal Tap-esque.
A little bit.
Smell the glove type of... It's just crazy. Like some of the bands and what they're... But again, it's the imagery we talk about, right? And the packaging, which, this is not original packaging. But yeah, Scorpions are one of those bands that had that. But that was my first kind of... understanding that, okay, in different countries, in different places, they have different packaging.
Getting back to our band we keep going back to, you know who one of the classic bands is that had a different marketing program, at least from their logo, in different countries, was Kiss.
Yeah.
Because of the S's.
The S's look too Nazi.
Like the Nazis.
SS.
So anytime they were in, it was Germany, and I think there were other countries where they had the S's had a kind of looked almost like a backwards
different.
2. Mm-hmm. They totally changed that look because of that very thing.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because people literally thought that there was some sort of an issue with the SS when the two leaders of the band are Jewish. So there. I mean, it
obviously
was,
people,
and both of them children of Holocaust survivors. So there was no connection at all. Right. It was just a cool looking. The two S's looked cool.
So people with too much time and just kind of anti-rock and roll, anti-heavy metal, that were always like trying to.
It looked cool.
Yeah, trying to fan some flame of this is right. But you know what? Now you want to get the alternate album cover and add it to your collection.
That's true.
Can you get this from me? You're going to Germany. Can you pick up this Kiss album with the cool
with the different
logos? Yeah, dude, this is a interesting find.
Is this something? But Led Zeppelin 3, of course, this was a departure for them too.
Yeah, way more acoustic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it had one of their greatest tunes, which was not acoustic at all. And then it became kind of this very acoustic album. But that Immigrant Song, still one of their one of the greatest rock songs ever. And you know, Jack Black doing the Immigrant Song in School of Rock is one of the
incredible.
You know, that look, the way that was so great.
That is. I mean, that just tells you right there. It transcends.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't heard it, you can't get pumped up and just shaking your head and just thinking, this is awesome.
It was
so powerful.
All kinds of awesome.
So
you don't beat it.
Dude,
and then all the tunes on here were actually. But once again, the problem with this particular album is if you owned this, you weren't really going to listen to much because it was so noisy. But this is just a very unusual. As far as records are concerned, you know, I mean, we could still bring out Led Zeppelin 3 and have a totally different discussion because this is a totally different thing. Even though this is Led Zeppelin 3,
this is totally random.
It's kind of a different.
This is random. You picked.
It's a different thing.
Dylan, you picked out the bootleg Chinese copy.
Pulled out the Chinese copy of the Led Zeppelin 3. Yeah, it's crazy interesting. And like I said, I'm pretty positive. I had somebody check on this before. I've spent a bit of time in Asia, and I'm pretty sure these are all Chinese characters. And so I have no idea what I'm looking at other than I know it's, you know, Robert Plant, Jumbo Jones, Jimmy Page, John Bonham,
right?
And they were man, it was so great. And then once again, this launched them off into Led Zeppelin 4, which was
huge. Stairway to Heaven. I mean, forget it. That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many polls. It's like the greatest rock song ever.
Yeah, and that whole album. I mean, it starts off with Black Dog, Battle of Evermore.
You know, maybe we could do the three so random Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, maybe.
So we can go through all.
I'd
the
be
covers
all over that because
that'd be kind of cool.
I love.
If anybody who likes that,
Led Zeppelin.
That's
That'd be fun to do. And we've got. I think I might. I'm not sure if I have all their records. I think I do. I think I might be missing one number, Led Zeppelin 1 on vinyl.
They might
but I think
be
I have
with
all the others.
Styx and Pyromania extra copies.
You know what? Speaking of that, yeah, right.
Just mess.
Led Zeppelin. Getting back to what you said a second ago, do you realize that on In Through the Outdoor, the one that came in the paper bag?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
I think there were either 7 or 9 covers of that album. You never knew which one you were going to get. I had a friend that had all of them.
Ooh.
And so if you take it, I have just one. But when you take it out of because they were always in that paper bag.
Yeah, it looked like a paper bag.
It was
cover.
the same picture, just photographs from different images, different angles. And yeah, they had a whole bunch of different covers for collectors to have that. I'm not cool enough to have all of them, but they were brilliant.
That is
not only were they
cool.
a great band, they had all these really cool things that they did with the packaging, covers, et cetera, et cetera. So,
no, that's awesome.
All right, man, that was kind of interesting.
One.
That's a cool one.
That's a good, interesting one.
All right,
thanks.
Well, hey, that was super fun. Once again, audiomover.com. Please like this video if you like it. Even if you don't, still like it. And subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments. We appreciate it. Audiomover.com. If you have audio videotapes you need to convert to digital. And until next time, thank you very much.
See ya.